FiveM is one of the biggest community-driven online mod projects in modern-day gaming. Its success is astounding, with hundreds of thousands of people both playing and watching streams of various roleplay or game mode servers online. Unfortunately though, it seems to have a very dark history filled with failed leadership, corruption, and disagreements leading to massive problems with FiveM itself that might even lead to its downfall. A very long expose was published a few days ago about the history of FiveM, from its humble beginnings to Rockstar's purchase of it almost a couple of years ago, explaining how it even led up to the infamous GTA 5 source code leak. And when I say there's a lot here, there is a lot. This would take you probably a half hour, if not even more than that, to read it all the way through. So in this video, I'm going to do my best to explain the important details, but I do apologize ahead of time if I get some things mixed up or don't go over certain things, because there are just so many things and people to keep track of here. And if you do want to read the entire thing for yourself, I'll of course have it linked in the description. So let us begin by going over the people involved in this debacle. These are people who you will hear me reference as I go throughout the video. Really, you can just look at the affiliation instead of the actual people involved here. The really important ones that will get mentioned multiple times are Ethan, the senior director, NTA, the founder of FiveM, Disk Use will be mentioned quite often, and Groot Gang and Alt V will mostly just be referred to as their specific groups. So the FiveM project began in 2015, as you can imagine. That's when GTA 5 on PC launched. And it started as an open source project with a goal to drastically enhance the multiplayer capabilities of GTA 5. And overall, things started out well for the most part. That was up until late 2015, when 3 FiveM community members had their accounts targeted by Take-Two Interactive, who saw FiveM as competition for the official gtaonline. And they continued to target NTA, the lead developer of FiveM, by continuing to ban new accounts he created. They wanted this guy completely gone. In November of 2015, things would take a turn for the worse when Take-Two would send private investigators to NTA's house and demanded for work on FiveM activities to come to a halt. This was followed by a lawsuit a couple of days later, and as a young person with not a whole lot of money to his name, that took a huge emotional toll on him, as it would to anyone being bullied by a massive corporation for just working on something that you're passionate about, like modding a video game for fun. Fast forward a couple of years, NTA joins up with Five Reborn, and they rebrand to the Citizen FX Collective, or CFX for short. And this was done in order to protect NTA's identity, as he was instructed that he legally could not work on anything that had to do with Take-Two's name. And they utilized multiple fake accounts to make it look like the project was being worked on by more people than it actually was, because still, NTA was one of the only people that were working on it mainly. And that's kind of the introduction to the story. The report goes on to explain the different development achievements that they accomplished with FiveM, and how for the most part this was all being done by mostly NTA himself, if not just a very small group of people in general. But in 2020, FiveM was becoming bigger and bigger, so they needed to expand the workforce by hiring actual employees, as doing all the work by himself was taking a toll on him. But hiring employees turned out to be harder than anticipated, because FiveM isn't your standard company. It's operating in the moral gray area, so to speak. And it's already known at this point that Take-Two isn't really fond of the project, as shown by the multiple altercations with NTA already. But eventually, they had the first FiveM team consisting of NTA, Duck, Thurs, Deltonic, and Disk Use, which coincides with the OGs on the picture here. Eventually, management issues were starting to occur when they expanded the team in early 2021, because the more people that are working together on the project, then the more management that you need. Which, according to the report, NTA did not want to take on that extra management, so apparently Deltonic was the one who took on the management, and he became irresponsible with it. And as you can imagine, when there is bad leadership, everything kind of falls apart. I'm not going to get into super specific details, because I'm more so trying to just generalize the situation here and go over the important parts. But eventually there were 6 people that formed a little group within the development team, many of which who are outlined as part of the Groot Gang, which we will discuss a lot further. These people had a private chat where they began to plot to manipulate NTA. Eventually, the manipulation led the group to try to take over the project, blaming NTA for all of the project's issues surrounding it. His mental health was taking a toll, where he would have outbursts to randomly shut down FiveM for periods of time. During these times, no one could access or play on it at all, which is obviously not something you want to be happening to your project. So this group obviously wanted NTA gone and for them to take over the direction of the project. But it's worth noting, at this point, NTA was still very much involved with FiveM. He wasn't removed yet. So in comes the Rockstar acquisition. The first contact between Rockstar and CFX was conducted in October of 2022, and you would think that it would be directly through NTA, the lead developer of FiveM, but it was actually from Deltonic who was talking to Rockstar behind NTA's back. Furthermore, NTA wasn't even allowed to meet with them on Zoom meetings without Deltonic present. After some time, the deal goes through, and NTA would hope that Rockstar would bring in some more stability, structure, and resources into a much-needed suffering project at the time, but that didn't end up being the case, unfortunately. In fact, things actually got worse. At the time of the acquisition, CFX had more than 20 contractors of varying work ethics who all joined Rockstar. And this introduces us to Ethan Hirsch, who was a director of strategy, but later in 2023, that was changed to senior director creator platform at Rockstar. And he obviously was the contact into Rockstar. He was responsible for the integration to the company, and at the start, he seemed to have left a good impression and provided some good insight that the future of FiveM would be positive. But this is where the slander towards NTA took a turn for the worst, with members of the Groot Gang claiming that working with NTA caused him PTSD and even lowered the data on their Fitbit. That's an actual quote from the report, I'm not even joking. This was all a play to try to get NTA fired from the project, to even the detriment of the Rockstar employee Ethan Hirsch, saying that it damaged his reputation at Rockstar dramatically. NTA was ultimately suspended from the project for a short while, and Ethan even went along as to give members of the so-called Groot Gang positions above NTA, because he seemingly took their complaints and put them over anything else. Even though, according to the report, most of the higher-ups still weren't contributing much to the project, but they were given senior positions still, while the people who were putting in the work were given junior or associate roles, with some even being given just a role of contractor. Even NTA, the founder of FiveM, was given that role. Upon NTA's return, though, he was ignored by essentially everyone when he tried to get work done, so he went to Ethan to try to discuss and resolve the matter, but was also ignored. And they even took his Discord roles away to further prevent communication with everyone, which obviously made work kind of impossible if you can't communicate with your colleagues. He was essentially being shut out of his own project, and Ethan apparently knew that the situation was happening and still allowed it to happen, mind you. Later on, Zenerky, one of the Groot Gang members, reported NTA for harassing them in DMs to HR, which caused NTA to again be suspended from the project for 3 months now, starting in October of 2023. After the acquisition, we all know that they got more strict with the use of real-world brands within the FiveM environment. Things like real-world cars or clothing brands were no longer allowed to be used on the custom servers. However, these rules in place were not being enforced fairly across the board. The RSM server, which was a part of the free mode FiveM server, specifically was targeted by these new rules, with the owner of RSM, Nex, ranting about the unfair enforcement and clear bias towards certain servers on FiveM. He lost his player base on his server because of this, and eventually boycotted FiveM altogether due to the way that the rule enforcement took place. The popular RP server NoPixel was given special treatment about these rules according to the report, where they were selling debadged vehicles in their store, which isn't supposed to be allowed, and is usually enforced for other smaller servers, but for NoPixel, nothing happened apparently. And the reasons for this are presumably because some of the NoPixel team is working with Ethan to move their server to Rome, or Rockstar Online Modding Engine. I believe I mentioned this in one of my videos a while ago, but this is supposed to be the FiveM killer that's been in development for a while now. And at this point, we still don't really know much about it other than that it was in development. As time went on, FiveM degraded more and more as management continued to not do its job properly, which led to many problems occurring. And even more strange that despite working directly with Rockstar, they still didn't have access to internal development tools within Rockstar to make the right improvements to the project. That they would eventually get there when the team built trust, according to Ethan. Fast forward a bit, NTA was eventually suspended from the project permanently, and from what he said in open letters talking about cashing out, the deal ended up being slashed, and FiveM ended up being sold for 10 months of operating income instead of 20 due to a breach in the contract, allegedly. And with NTA leaving the project for good, they now needed some more people to join the team to work on development. One such group were the developers of a competing GTA 5 multiplayer mod project, Alt-V. Although NTA suspected the Alt-V team of stealing FiveM code in the past, but they were brought on board as they were also recommended by the Groot Gang. So now the hierarchy of power within the project would be Ethan and some other new hires on site at Rockstar at the top. Below that would be the Groot Gang, who reports to the managers at Rockstar. And below them is the newly acquired Alt-V or ex-Alt-V group. And finally at the very bottom are the original FiveM developers, which seems very backwards, doesn't it? Why are the original developers all the way at the bottom of the poll? Once again, mismanagement took over though, and once the old V team joined, they tried to shoehorn the way they do things on the way that FiveM is developed, with no contact with the original developers, which caused a lot of problems internally and pissed off a lot of the original developers and caused the project to regress overall. And on June 10th, 2024, another original developer, Discuse, was kicked off of the project after his contract expired and wasn't renewed. He became more and more frustrated with the work environment up until that point, with him being blamed for a lot of the project's downfalls despite all of the work he put into the project. Other original developers of FiveM got word of the situation and they also all quit, which eventually left none of the original FiveM devs on the team. They were all gone. Now you're probably wondering by this point, why in the world would they keep the people who are not getting any work done and pay those guys a ton of money over the actual original developers of the project who created it out of passion? It just doesn't make any sense. Why would they protect the people who are lazy or who are actively hurting the project over the actual original devs? Well, that is entirely up to speculation, really. But remember how I said NTA and the original developers of FiveM suspected that the Alt-V team were stealing their code to use in their own project? FiveM was open source, but a license agreement was in place that prohibited the use of its code in competing projects, which Alt-V was to FiveM. Not only that, this continued after Rockstar bought FiveM and during the onboarding process, which technically means they were violating Rockstar's IP rights at the time. And this brings us to the GTA 5 source code leak. Long story short, it was members of this Alt-V team who leaked the GTA 5 source code. The money was pooled and the source code was bought for around 7,000 euros, and they secretly used that code to further develop Alt-V. And what's even crazier about this is absolutely mind-blowing here. During this time, they were already in talks with Rockstar about employment. So they bought and leaked the GTA 5 source code while also negotiating employment from Rockstar at the same time. That is absolutely insane. In regards to mod takedowns, we also have some very interesting information here pertaining to the Liberty City Preservation Project. Apparently, it was reported to a Discord server with a lot of high-up individuals to the Groot Gang, and based on what's been said in this report, apparently all these mod takedowns that have been happening go right through Ethan Hirsch. And we even have a statement from the Liberty City Preservation developers about this here in their Discord. Hello, everyone. We have become aware of the situation involving FiveM as per this website, and they leave a link to this report. Here is a statement from World Travel. A representative of Rockstar politely asked us to take the Liberty City Preservation Project links down because the legal team had an issue with it. He was very professional. We removed the links as a gesture of good faith and made sure both parties agreed as to how we'd address this to the community. After 2 Zoom meetings and several back and forth emails regarding how we could work together in the future, the contact from Rockstar became unresponsive in this area. Later on, we became aware that one of the paid Liberty City mods suddenly had GTA 4 props, custom scenarios, bug fixes, fixed up interiors, animated signs, subway paths, etc. And they linked to an example. This is a very strange coincidence considering these mods have always replaced the props with GTA 5 props. I emailed the contact from Rockstar sending him a link to the project, and he told me he forwarded it to their enforcement team, though I now have my doubts about that. Currently, these expensive Liberty City mods, some of which sell for prices of around 500 euros, are still up. It seems like claims made in the original FiveM developers blog are correct. I don't want to go into speculation, but it wouldn't be surprising if someone is getting a slice of the pie. Due to these revelations, we are uncertain if this takedown request is genuine. Now, based on everything that we've gone over in this video in regards to Ethan and his behavior seemingly deep into bias towards certain servers and an unwillingness to enforce rules fairly, and even outright ignoring some people when they bring him concerns, this sounds exactly like something that he would be behind. To just become unresponsive and start ignoring him, and yet other paid Liberty City mods can remain up without punishment. So it's hard not to speculate if the only reason this mod was taken down was because it's a free mod, while the other ones they are making money off of so they can stay up. No way to know for sure, obviously, but it's very suspicious all around. Anyways, that is the very dark history of FiveM and its ultimate collapse. A story of failed leadership, greed, manipulation, going from a passion project to improve GTA 5 to a nightmare scenario for many people involved. It's worth noting that this doesn't entirely fall on Rockstar, however, I don't think it's the best look to acquire a new asset like FiveM and then immediately ruin all the goodwill it had while making no meaningful improvements to it and even ruining the project from within. But in the report, they do say that most of the other developers at Rockstar have been very nice to them, so I don't believe any of the original developers have any ill will towards Rockstar. In the end, I do just feel for the original devs though, and the people that had to endure that toxic work environment. It's just a really unfortunate situation. When I saw that Rockstar was going to acquire FiveM, I immediately assumed that it was going to end up being a good thing in the end, because I assumed they would get access to Rockstar internal resources to make development easier for them. But it turns out that just didn't end up being the case at all. And I remember there was all those talks about FiveM potentially being on console, and at this point I just don't see that being a thing after seeing that report. I will leave a link to the entire report in the description though if you want to read it yourself. It is quite interesting if you do have a ton of time on your hands. I do recommend checking it out at least a little bit, because I didn't cover every single detail in this video, just wanted to give you guys the rundown of all the major story arcs here. If you enjoyed the video or found it helpful, feel free to leave a like as well as subscribe to my channel for more gtaonline content. I also want to give a huge shout out to all of my channel members for your support. If you'd like to become a member for some exclusive perks, you can either use the join button or the link that's down in the description. And as always, thanks for watching and have a great day.